To further our understanding of citizen journalism and the role it plays in investigating oil, gas, and mining, we will hear from Omoyele Sowore, a prominent Nigerian political activist and graduate of Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs. In 2006, Mr. Sowore founded a news platform called Sahara Reporters. Called the WikiLeaks of Africa by the Daily Beast, Sahara Reporters is a website that encourages Nigerian citizens to report on corruption and government misconduct. Living in the safety of New York, Mr. Sowore has been able to use the new communications landscape to collect and publish information about corruption in Nigeria. He uses social media to get tips, leaks, and information from citizens and to disseminate major stories. As we listen, we can think back to other global muckrakers who started outlets to expose wrongdoing.
Sahara Reporters was founded as my own personal response to the need for ordinary citizens to report news and engage with news in such a way that they can get a different kind of empowerment that is different from, in my view, how the mainstream treated reporting, which is something that they're in control of content production, distribution, and engagement. So, but I was propelled by, my very amazing discovery of how technology could help that kind of idea to travel far and wide at a time that Nigeria, my home country, had started to embrace the use of mobile telephony and internet technology on a large scale. I can tell you that the extraction of oil, the appearance of oil, and the business around oil extraction is pretty crude. So it requires a different level of understanding and a different level of ideological understanding and some high level of experience of coming from the place or having seen what oil can do to people. To actually, so I would say that aspect can be called passion, for seeing that justice is done to the people from whom billions and billions of barrels of oil has been taken and given nothing in return but pollution of water, air, and soil in the Niger Delta regions. The players involved, they're pretty powerful. And they have multinational connections. The places of extraction of oil are very remote. They're far, far remote from, what's the visible. From any kind of what I would call, any kind of press visibility or journalistic visibility, and it is done like that. It's done on purpose so that people won't know what is happening. So it takes me 5 hours to get to any major oil rig in Niger Delta region taking a boat, if I'm a journalist and want to see anything. It takes the oil producing companies 30 minutes to get there because they have helicopters. And they're not likely to take you on the helicopter to see the kind of damage they do to the environment. So, when they need to suppress agitation in Niger Delta, they put soldiers on their helicopters to go help them shoot up villagers who are protesting. And when they're shooting, journalists can't also make it there because it's just very, very remote to get. I think of all the minerals, all the products that are within the extractive industry, I think oil is the most remote and the most difficult. Oil extraction is the most difficult to cover because, it has onshore and offshore, dimensions to them. They have, underground or overground dimension to it. And like I said, it's just something that is different characteristically as a product. And I guess that is why, you look at the number of players that are involved, it's probably the worst, product ever that brings the worst kind of characters within that industry together. We cover a lot of corruption related to the extractive industry. And one of these big stories that we've always referred to is a governor of a state in Delta State who stole over $250 million meant for his people. Of course, these monies were moved through banks to the UK. He bought a £2.8 million house, bought a jet in Canada. He bought a lot of very luxurious automobiles, both in the UK and South Africa. And we tracked him down, kept reporting on him until he somehow found his way to Dubai, where he was arrested and eventually extradited to the UK, where he was sentenced to 13 years in jail. So this is the kind of thing I'm talking about, how the extractive industry corrupts people. But the sad part, of course, I would not fail to say, is that the banks in Europe and America that were involved in moving these monies around were not punished. So, but we have the main culprit in prison spending 13 years in jail. It's the first time in the history of Nigeria that any Nigerian involved in the wholesome theft of oil resources meant for people had found himself in jail for such a prolonged period of time. We've done several other stories that has to do with oil spills from the big companies. Of course, we're not able to determine, because sometimes I'm very quick to say that, coverage of this kind of stories may not have immediate impact. It might have historical impact, and it's up to history to judge. But the fact that we have empowered citizens, and put them on the front lines where they can report issues as they're happening instantaneously, is in itself a huge impact on journalism that I have never seen before until now. There are about 100 million users of mobile phones in Nigeria, and they're getting smarter and smarter every day. You have smartphones and also smart people using them. So they're getting smarter and smarter every day, and because we've conditioned people to the need for them to actually cover these issues on their own and send them back to us so that we can help them tell their stories to the world, we're finding that it's becoming easier for our type of journalism to cover the extractive industry. So you don't have villagers who must have witnessed soldiers coming around and they will quietly or secretly film them with their cell phones or audio tapes and send them out to us. I remember a few years ago when ExxonMobil in Akwa Ibom were clearly denying some huge spill of oil. They couldn't even get, we couldn't even get American mainstream media to cover this. It was from fishermen and villagers that we got pictures of birds that are soaked in oil, and the layers of oil on the high seas and the rivers and the whole pollution covered, that forced, I think, another organization to use satellites to discover the extent of that spill. Mobil denied it until, that effort on our part attracted bigger players, globally, to make them account for it. But this was something that wouldn't have been possible in the last few years, because nobody would have found out, and even if they did, they could deny it. If you see an oil spill on the high seas in Nigeria, how could you tell, since they don't come with signatures, if it was Mobil or Shell, or if it came from ENI, from Italy. So you could never tell. But with the kind of journalism we practice, the citizen reporting that we encourage people to report themselves, we have been able to do some of this coverage in a way that has never been done before. When you talk about impact, it depends on who you're talking to and who gets impacted. What I found very interesting that has not been studied about new media is, the new populations that are impacted, and even sometimes something as intrinsic as deriving pleasure and pride from telling their own stories through our platforms and getting their stories pushed to the front of global discourse, which has never happened before, and in a manner that they can engage and control. And that, for me, is a new level of impact. But there's also the impact of relief for communities that have been under siege, from oil companies, military, government, that suddenly, because you keep reporting on them and there's a photograph and there is a small story, suddenly the government runs away and let them be, or somebody is put in jail unjustly and they let them go because it's a small story that's been done, or, people who have different lifestyles who have been given that new lease of life because somebody is reporting about it, and we're shining light in every corner of the world. That is what I mean by impact, and and that's what I mean by discussing impact from the point of view of philosophy. That you can gauge that, you can know what it means for somebody to be released from prison, or for somebody to be relieved of soldiers that have been coming around who otherwise would have been doing what they like if there was no Sahara reporters, or a government official who had wanted to steal and had a second thought because he knew that he could be shamed if this made it to Sahara reporters, or people who can even invoke the name of a small media like ours to stop government from doing wrong or stop politicians from doing what is wrong. This kind of journalism has shifted the power base of journalism, from just a few very nice guys who know how to roll up their sleeves in the newsroom to the generality of the people. We get a lot of pressure, and we are not directly on the line of fire in Nigeria, but in the US, interestingly, I have been sued in my personal capacity 4 different times, for a huge amount of money, with intent of putting pressure on me not to do what I'm doing now, And these are lawsuits that have been funded by Nigerian government officials, lawyers, to intimidate and scare me from doing, and my colleagues from doing this. And also, for several years, in fact for 8 years, I could not travel directly to Nigeria because my name was put at the airport, that if I ever traveled through the airport, I would be picked up, arrested, interrogated, and only God knows what will happen. But this different kinds of pressure. But the companies also would send big lawyers to write just warning letters, cease and desist to us, and we know what it means when you get a letter from a huge law firm saying, if you don't cease, we're going to run you out of business or we'll bankrupt you. So it's always there. And we get direct phone calls, people directly threatening us. We get emails, we get text messages. The same platform through which we distribute our news are also platforms that are used to push back against us. Anybody today can start their own news platform and get, their SEO well-tuned and move and flow to the top of search engines such that whenever they put out news, they get picked up the first. And so we're going to have a lot of those people. And the nature of news engagement and news consumption is going to move, and this actually has moved away from traditional websites to microblogging websites. It's going to make it harder for people to monetize, their products, and because when your video is taken and uploaded on Facebook, you can't really do much about it. When your news is reproduced by somebody entirely without even referring to you, you really can't police that. So except you have Facebook in particular becoming magnanimous, like Google had been to a large extent, and helping serious publishers to monetize their content, you're going to find harder and harder to make money off of startups like ours.